everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Scott Malbaurn, and I am the Executive Director of the Schneider Museum of Art, part of the Oregon Center for the Arts here at Southern Oregon University. Please note that we have you all on mute, and please stay on mute until the end of the talk. If you have any questions, please type those into the chat or save them for the end. So today, I have the pleasure of introducing our special guest, Jia Jia, who is participating in our Visiting Artist and Scholar in Teaching program known as VAST. VAST is an artist residency partnership between the museum and the creative arts program here at SOU that brings in an outside artist to engage with our students and community through teaching, workshops, and this creative industries discussion. Jia Jia is a multimedia artist. She works primarily in installation and incorporating sculpture, video, and performance. Her practice uses satire and humor to imagine everyday objects anew. The work questions how globalization and technologically saturated society influence the ideology of the individual and how the individual behaves in society filled with contradiction and stimulation. She earned her BFA in ceramics from China Central Academy of Fine Arts and her MFA in sculpture from the University of Washington. She was a resident at California State University, Long Beach. And in 2020, she was the recipient of the Boyer and Elizabeth Bole Gonzales Scholarship. Please join me in welcoming Jia Jia. Hi, Jia Jia, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone, to be here. And thanks, the Southern Oregon University invites me as a visiting artist. Okay, great. So I'm gonna start with this number 26, regular fortune. Thousands of soldiers obey you without failure to the order and dignity of the general. All soldiers, even to the far distant countries, will be the same by your order. To get win or to lose are unknown while they attack the enemy's castle. Show why the great honor in defeating the enemy. It is not worthwhile so much to the people. Your request will be granted. The patient will get well. The lost article will be found soon. The guest you wait for will come soon. Building a new house and removal are both fine. It is good to start a trip. Marriage and employment are all well. So I went to Japan in the summer of 2019 before I arrived in Seattle, and I asked for a fortune when I visited Sensoji Temple in Tokyo. So when I got this fortune, actually I was a little bit upset because this is not the best fortune. So I told my friend and her mom told me, you know, actually this is the best fortune because it is not bad and you still have space to go up and to be the best. So that moment I was really satisfied, and I think it just changed a little bit my attitude to things. Okay, so as you can see right now, this is a map of China, and the bright yellow part actually is my hometown. My hometown is an industrial city in the north, and it's not far from Beijing. So one thing I want to mention here, I think it influenced me in somehow because my hometown Taiyuan is deeply influenced by Confucianism. So Confucianism, part of the Confucianism has rigid rituals and social order. And I think you all know China has a large population, and for my hometown's population as 2020 is around 5.3 million. And I went to college in Beijing, and Beijing's population is around 21 million in 2018. So it means like wherever you go or whenever you go, so I always like surrounded by people. So it's really hard for me to take a photo without people. If I go to a tourist place, like the photo on the left, and even you go to like a rural mall, and there is also lots of people. But at the same time, I like observing people from different classes, like the way they're talking and the way they behave. So I took those photos on the train. Actually, this couch only has seat. So normally people has to sit it for more than 24 hours to get to their destination. So those couch normally are for low income people or students, or someone couldn't get a ticket in the last minute. This is like a midnight staying in this couch. So since I'm interested in observing like, or thinking about ordinary people, so I asked myself, what is normal? What is ordinary? How to be normal? And also I'm thinking about the relationship between the ordinary people and the identical and massive objects, as we know, like made in China. And I'm interested in finding differences in normal, and also I'm interested in thinking about adaptability for normal people. There are just interesting story that I was an exchange student in Alfred University in 2015. And this small town in New York State only has around 5,237 people. So when I visit there and when I walked on the street, a stranger just saw me and smiled at me and also said hi. And I was shocked because I never experienced that before, in my hometown. And then I'm thinking about myself because I'm just part of the like normal person. So I'm thinking about my life track. So actually this is the image that about like solar system. So like everything is on their track, but I put my photo off the track. So I'm thinking, how about what's life gonna be if I'm not on the track? I'm not in the social like order. Just attending college in the capital of China, I think the political and economic structure just make you feel the repetitive life is the right thing to do. And just like taking a subway in Beijing, sometimes the crowd push you forward without moving by yourself. So, but you need to figure out what is the meaning of your life. So the track thing just made me think about this artist, Gabriel. So this work called The Cats and Watermelons. So he played some objects in the supermarket and displaced them in different regions. So he uses like familiar daily objects to create a poetic and absurd situation. So supermarket is a perfect universe. He said everything is in order, divided, subdivided, and in display. And it generates chaos inside this archive of local food when people interact with supermarket. In his work, you can feel that the capital and logistics helps thousands of products find their own places in the supermarket. His work, Cats and Watermelons, indicates that we as consumers have the true buying power in a capitalist, consumer-driven society. The power is on our hands to break down this beautiful yet flawed illusion. And then I started to think about my name, especially in spelling and pronunciation. Yeah, just because my name is kind of special in English. So my last name and the first name is the same spelling. So I started to think about the function of my name when I first came to US in 2015. People always ask me the spelling and pronunciation about my name. In the end, I started to fake the pronunciation when I went to Starbucks, since it is easier for them to remember, and I would feel less bothered. I even used a random name when I made a reservation or something. So I started to ask myself why I have to be serious about the pronunciation of my name if people or me just use this to classify me in the crowd. This is not the right classification, actually. So how about just use numbers as our names to boost the efficiency in the society? And also, I tried to search my Chinese name on Google and Baidu. So Baidu is a Chinese Google. It's the largest browser in China. It's interesting like that when I search my name in Chinese Google, it shows more female pictures. But when I search my name in Google, it shows more like male pictures. But I kind of think about those, like just data collection also comes from a system. And then I just think about some background about like motivations or something inspired me to make what I'm interested in right now. So I was learning architecture in my high school. So I always walk on the street and take photos of every details, like the photo on the left, because we have to do drawings. So we pay attention to the like ACs, like cars, bicycles, and those commercial signs. And I think just during this time made me interested in objects, space, and paying attention to the relationships between different things such as color, forms, and space. And then because I failed go to the architecture department, so I changed to product design in my undergrad. So so this department also includes like ceramic studio, but what do we do like normally is learning like tableware design and classic redesign. And we visit Jingdezhen several times. So Jingdezhen is a ceramic center in China, and we learn and we did lots of market investigations. And just during this time made me interested in more about deconstructing the functionality of things. And here I can show you a video of this. Go to the next. And also for this one, I just play around with a blood pressure device. So I chose random like product in the supermarket. And in this video, just I would like the scar on the right photo just made by the blood pressure device. And on the right video, I was trying to create an atmosphere that people are just superficially check the health of that orange. Next one. And also this one, just play around with a toy. So this series I made during 2020, it also, besides deconstructing the functionality of objects, and also just blending the self-feeling during the pandemic, and also just for this video still fight, because just during the pandemic there is a fight between China and America, like always. But some fight just about like jeopardizing the visa situation about foreigners. So that time, when I play with this toy, I feel like there are just two people just fighting on not moving forward, like a toy, and so you can't solve the problem, but you're still like fighting. And my hand were trying to be numb, so I just like doing the repetitive, like same speed action. I'm interested in this artist, Francis Alice. So this piece called "Sometimes Making Something Leads to Nothing." So for this piece, Francis Alice just carrying a piece of ice and walking around the city in Mexico City for around 10 hours. And so towards the end, the ice is melting and it becomes water and disappear. Actually, I visited his show in Shanghai, China in 2018, and I really like this quote here. So it said, in a China transformed by the fast-paced transition to capitalism and the efficiencies of technology, this exhibition, this is a French, it means consumption, in many ways posits values antithetical to such development. The title, which translates literally as consumption, is taken from George Bataille's more nuanced notion that excessive non-productive consumption is just as important in human activity as productive consumption. Some of his work's content and meaning emerge from inconsequential, ineffective, and unproductive actions and details. So just speaking about adaptability and resistance of ordinary people, I'm interested in. So I'm thinking about myself firstly. Sometimes I feel like I am a chameleon, and at the same time, I can be an adapter. They both of them are like product to adapting the environment, but one is from nature and one is from industry and globalization. Actually, the adapter on the right is a combination of North America, Asia, and Europe. I think for me, when I'm creating works, I like to pay attention to my surroundings to find out what interested me or inspired me like locally. So for this work, when I visited Alfred, I'm really into their landscapes. So I was trying to make some or mimic some like their mountain shapes by ceramics. And then I back to China and back to Jingdezhen. Maybe some of you know, like Jingdezhen is really good at the industrial production line. So sometimes you can only hand your draft to the craftsman and manufacturer, and they can make anything happen on the paper. So during that time, I learned a lot, and also it was really productive. So trying to focus on the composition of different forms and colors, and use slip casting a lot. And then I visited California State University, Long Beach. And when I was there, I can't afford to like hire a craftsman. And also it's hard to find many people like that. So I started to make things again by myself. So for this piece, I made the molds of rubber ducks and smashed them in a container, trying to release my pressure that time. And then I back to China, and I visited Yiwu. So Yiwu actually is a city, is famous for its light industrial commodity trade and vibrant market. 90 to 98% made in China product are come from this city. Like when I saw those just large amount of product commodities and the vibrant colors, which made me think about what is reality and what is the truth in that place besides money and products. And then I just went to grad school in Seattle, and sometimes like the color of my work are more like like Pacific Northwest coast color, like green, blue, and grayish. And just for like speak of like normal people, I kind of like experiment or use the metaphor of grass. So I can show you a video here first. So for this video, I use iron to iron the grass, and in the middle, I ironed the dead grass. And the third video, I was ironing the wrinkled world map. So in my culture, grass represents masses and grassroots, ordinary people. There is a Chinese poem that describes it as lush grass on the plains in 1 year withers and thrives once each. Wildfire doesn't burn it completely. When spring winds blow, it lives again. So this indicates the resilience and the hope of grass and the masses. And I also document this for around a month. So as the time going, and so I can see the grass actually is growing back. I was thinking because I use the iron, but I didn't destroy the root of grass. So I feel like the yard or the community grass help that piece of grass growing back. Just inspired by that experiment. So I kind of want to bring the grass or the sod inside. So for this piece on livable lives, I used a hand dryer, steamer, and iron, and put them in the gallery space. Also, I bring the sod here. So for this piece, I'm interested in those devices because I feel like these devices can bring the soft violence. Those are just like domestic objects, but if you use them inappropriately, it can hurt or destroy things. So on the in the other corner of the space, I also put a blood pressure device and heart, like to check the heart beating device, and trying to create a similar atmosphere, like check the health of the grass. And in the entrance of the gallery, actually there is like instruction video to show how you use those devices. So, Yeah, okay. Just for this part, I'm interested in this artist Martha Rosler's work. It's called Semiotics Kitchen. So in this like performance, like Rosler takes on the role of an clad housewife and parodies the television cooking demonstrations popularized by Julia Child in the 1960s. So in the video, her gestures sharply punctuate the rage and frustration of oppressive women's roles. Rosler has said of this work, I was concerned with something like the notion of language speaking the subject. And also just responding to the unlivable lives that work. So I kind of make like livable lives. For this one, I kind of use the zip tie to connect the grass piles together. And on the grass piles, I put the outlet and adapter on the surface and the charger here. So the video is the first piece I collaborated with a dancer. And I made the video blurry in the space. Yeah, so in this space, because for the last piece, all the grass are slowly dying in the space. But for this one, I kind of think about where is the power come from can make the grass live, but it's hard to keep the grass like live inside. So I'm just bring all those cords and the electricity idea into this piece. And also for the videos, and you can see the vibrant color, like the green and blue, like really live things on the green, but it's also just a video, like it's not the real thing. And at the same time, I was like writing the description of this piece because this piece is kind of experimental and it's hard for me to find the logic to explain it clearly. But at the same time, I'm thinking, is it necessary to make it clear? So I kind of like play around with the text. So I just overlapped the text of this work's description and make it unreadable. And just basic on that just overlapped text piece, I started to think about the broken English. Sometimes I feel like it is advantageous for me to speak broken English because I feel like foreigners, like eventually your English gonna get better as the time going. So that time I saw this TED show by the scientist Lyra. So this TED show called How Language Shapes the Way We Think. Sorry, I'm not going to. So she said, imagine a jellyfish waltzing in a library while thinking about quantum mechanics. So from like her TED talk, we know that people who speak different language will pay attention to different things depending on what their language usually requires them to do. So she had an example about the English and Spanish speakers. So human minds have invented at least 7,000 cognitive universes. The worst news is right now, almost everything we know about human mind and human brain is based on studies of usually English-speaking universities. So what we know about the human mind is actually narrow and biased. So in conclusion, she mentions the most important thing is how the language that you speak shapes the way that you think. Why do I think the way that I do? How could I think differently? What thoughts do I wish to create? So yeah, as I said, like as a foreigner artist, living in an English-speaking country, sometimes I feel like it is advantageous for me to be creative by using broken language. So English invades in my life, and I want to leave my invasion in English. I broke English. So I started to making this piece. So I made a survey through Amazon Mechanical Turk. So Amazon Mechanical Turk actually is like a survey device. So I can show you this Google form here. So I sent out around 8 questions. Besides the questions, I also provide the options like what is factuality, like hope, conjecture, truth with a question mark, on realism, how to know factuality, escape, don't dream, be a journalist, reading news. When you want to know factuality, dreaming, hungry, angry, poor with a question mark. Why you want to know factuality, for entertainment, for desire, for living. Can tears substitute salt when you're cooking? If can, how? Can a smile substitute sugar when you're baking? If can, how? How blood can substitute ketchup when you're eating burgers? What occupation do you think the person designing this questionnaire is? So the Google form actually automatically gonna organize all those data. So I got those pie charts. So at the first place, I don't know how to deal with those words and data. So I started to, so those are some answers I gathered from the results. Some I think that those are interesting for me. So I don't know how to deal with those pie charts, but at the same time, I don't trust the data from that survey. So I started to draw those pie charts, use my hand without the ruler. So I use my eye as a ruler. So I tried to draw those on one of the Amazon's buildings in Seattle. And also I decided to use charcoal to draw those pie charts because as you all know, like charcoal is hard to control on the paper. So sometimes it can be really messy. So I feel like all those, like the charcoal powders are like my, like the person who take my survey, and they can cross the boundaries. Here are just some examples. Sometimes I wrote the answer just in a really lonely, tiny corner. So at the same time, I'm thinking, what is my answers for this? So what is factuality for me? I'm thinking this book, like Everyone Poops, and How to Know Factuality. I was thinking about those cans, just unlabeled, and those are just like ID for the cans, which is like the Amazon Mechanical Turk workers who take my survey. They only have a working ID. I can't know their name, and there are also some like expiration time. And when you want to know factuality, I was like searching this dictionary, and it has some definition about like the free world, like the non-communist countries of the world. So I'm Chinese, so I'm kind of like feel like this is interesting for me. So I'm thinking about to create my own dictionaries. It's a time when I want to know the factuality. And I used the ground pork to replace the pages in the dictionary after I saw that definition. And also I made a video for this. I will play it really quick. Yeah, so I just asked my friend to carry that dictionary around in the supermarket and then microwave them. This is like the final piece in the gallery space. And And because the gallery doesn't allow organic materials like the meat, so I just put the empty dictionary and write a word on it. Also on the side of the piece, I also put a door viewer, trying to provide a second perspective to see the work. So what in Ashland? I wish I could have more time here, like to making my own work. And just during those days, I'm thinking about just back to the electricity and the power to things. So I'm trying to build a clay adapter, like larger one. I was trying to incorporate with body parts. So actually you can maybe just put your arms or legs into all those like adapter holes and just use clay to make those cords, like electricity cords. And also this is also part of those. At the same time, I started to like doing like experiment and mailing art with my photographer and painter friend. So I mailed the clay to them. So they changed something and they mailed this to another person. Then they mailed back to me. So we're still experimental with this. Sometimes we set up rules like don't change the shape of clay or don't do other things. And this is a sketchbook the painter sent me. And also, this is just like nonsense because I searched nothing on the Google map and try to find something, but it's just like a vague thoughts, which interests me now, just trying to explain the issues I concerned clear by my like own GPS, like with the phones or computers. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jia Jia. So we can open it up for some questions. If anybody here with us today have any questions for Jia Jia, you may unmute yourself and ask directly, or type them into the chat, and we will read them aloud for you.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
So Jia Jia, would you share how much more time you have with us here in Southern Oregon?
I'm gonna leave on 14th.
December 14th.
Yeah.
Great. Do you feel as though the residency was productive for you of being able to get into your own work?
Yeah, I think it's in a different way because I'm teaching 2 courses here. And also, as I said, I like to interact with people. And sometimes feel like students are the data or I'm the data. So I kind of like enjoy like different way to work with students. So I'm pay attention to the way I talk to them or their response. Yeah, but I'm still like brewing or cooking those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead, Tori.
Well, kind of like a question comment. I'm really curious, like if you were to stay longer, what your work would look like if you had more time to just work on your own work. I know you have like a lot to prepare for all the classes, but it is also interesting, like you being from China and then being in Seattle for grad school, but then coming to Ashland. And just like how going from such different places influences the way that you interact with people and things and accessibility and the way you spoke about like broken English and all of that. It's just like there's so much. I'm just like so curious to see what you would make moving forward because seeing your work in each location, like I'm assuming you spent longer than like 2 months in those locations, but it does like reflect kind of where you were in that place. So that was my question comment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tori.
What I'm gonna do? It's so it's more about like what I'm gonna make in Ashland if I stay longer. Am I understanding right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like, it's kind of like a question that doesn't really need to be answered. It's more of just a curiosity, seeing
Yeah.
kind of what you've done so far.
Yeah. Just from that Amazon thing and also just mailing art those disciplines, I'm kind of like, and also I'm teaching because I have to deliver information. So sometimes I talk to my friend, oh, I think my students are like confused, maybe because my English. But they said, oh, maybe you have to focus on how to deliver the information. So I'm thinking about accuracy, or I know this is like academic, it has to be clear, but I don't know. How about just do a project with students, just bring the inaccuracy to things. If I stay longer, I would do more experimental things with students, like in academic environment. Yeah.
Thank you, Jia Jia. There's a question in the chat, and I will read that aloud. I am curious about the outcomes of your art. Is it intended for exhibition showing only, or do you anticipate that it is to become part of a collection?
Oh, David, you mean collection for like my collection?
Your collection, or maybe somebody else's collection, or
okay.
collection, probably the large umbrella of collection.
Yeah, right now it's kind of like interesting time for me because graduate from school and start career, and like obviously like my work is not I'm not just for exhibition showing, but I'm thinking about more like not in the white wall space, more wanna go outside to do things. So I'm not intended for like specifically for things. But at the same time, it just when I started my career and you need to find opportunities, and most of the opportunities are inside or with the white walls. So yeah, what you said about the collection would be most interesting for me. Yeah.
Thank you, Jia.
Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you, Jia Jia, for your great presentation. It was really clear and really exciting to see your work with your voice explaining it one to the next, and how you kind of chose to kind of pace things and where you chose to focus. So it's really nice to see that. One thing that I was really thinking about and was struck by was your kind of explorations with grass, and kind of culturally how you reference kind of like this, I think a Chinese saying, and how kind of grass burns, and thinking about kind of our kind of two things really is where my head went with kind of my cultural kind of references to grass as being this kind of historical American kind of showiness of like wealth and power, from like ever since from like, the founding fathers, so to speak, and kind of these big plantations with grass, to the kind of suburban front yard and kind of this like hyper monoculture kind of grass thing that you can't even step on. But then also thinking about how, the Almeida fire last year started as a grass fire, and that kind of it's called in the news like a wildfire and like a forest fire, but it was really like a grass fire that turned into a housing fire, series of housing along this corridor, and it wasn't in the mountains above Ashland, it was like, or above Talon or above the Rogue Valley, it was like at the bottom of it along the kind of the densest populated areas, and kind of thinking about how grass, and then this kind of when I saw you ironing the grass, I just like couldn't, I just like loved it, and hearing you speak about it, and this kind of absurd action, and so I guess so those are comments, and I think what I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around is like, because I don't know how grass is kind of seen culturally in China, and that was kind of I realized as my first understanding of it, and as this kind of maybe this historical notion of what grass maybe means in China. And I'm wondering having now been in, you also lived through the historic, not maybe in Ashland last year, but through historic smokes for the last 2 years and the smoke has affected you in your time in the United States. And I'm curious if like you could kind of like relay these kinds of both this kind of 1950s to current American front lawn and kind of our historical 300 years kind of Monticello kind of era founding fathers grass and how that may be to wildfire, kind of how that connects to maybe your historical and personal perspective of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I have heard about what grass means here. Show off. So this is a question or just
yeah, I mean, it's and one thing that's really interesting is like thinking about how like Seattle and like the Pacific Northwest is probably like in parts of it, probably in America, it's probably the easiest place for grass to just be green.
Yeah.
Where it probably takes the least amount of effort. But in so much of the country, in Arizona, for example, if you have green grass there, that is not natural. That is forced human ingenuity, science, this thing. And for much of the United States, but maybe Seattle is naturally the greenest grass year round. So.
Yeah. I think this also, just this is like a large topic.
Yeah.
It involves many things like politically, economically, or just regionally, that would be interesting. Yeah, to do a large project, like if I move to different places and do different things about grass. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. We have time for maybe one more quick question. If anybody has anything, you could unmute and ask or type it into the chat.
I'm excited to see your work moving forward, and that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tori. Yeah.
Thanks, Tori. Jia Jia, thank you so much for coming to Southern Oregon and joining us and working with our students and being part of our community. It's been quite an amazing journey this fall as our students have returned for in-person, and we are so glad to have you here, part of our team. Thank you, Jia Jia.
Yeah, thank you all for those insight questions and comments. Yeah, thank you.